WWE Backlash 2025, Dean Ambrose gets his hands on Seth Freakin Rollins for attacking and throwing shade at the OTC Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns. Welcome, wrestling fans, to another explosive episode of Wrestling News CC. Tonight, we've got a story that will make your jaw drop, your heart race, and your fists pump in sheer excitement. This is no ordinary tale of rivalries, betrayals, or championship dreams. This is a story of resurrection, vengeance, and redemption. Tonight, we're diving deep into WWE Backlash 2025, where Seth Freakin Rollins' empire was torn apart by none other than the man he never saw coming, Dean Ambrose. Or, as he's known now, Jon Moxley. At WWE Backlash 2025, Seth Rollins was on top of the world. He was primed to deliver a performance that would define his legacy. He had his loyal followers by his side, the powerhouse Braun Breaker and the manipulative genius Paul Heyman. This was supposed to be the night when Rollins cemented his place as the future of WWE, and no one could stop him. But Rollins made one critical mistake. He mocked the very man who once walked side by side with him in the trenches, forming one of the most iconic factions in WWE history, the Shield. When Seth Rollins threw shade at Roman Reigns, the leader of the new Shield, it was a declaration of war. But when Rollins took aim at Dean Ambrose, who was now Jon Moxley, it was the spark that lit the fuse. What happened next would change the course of WWE history forever. Get ready, because this is the ultimate showdown you never saw coming. Dean Ambrose gets his hands on Seth Freakin Rollins in one of the most anticipated returns in recent memory. Let's break down the events that led up to this explosive moment, and the seismic impact it will have on the WWE Universe moving forward. Rollins' rise and reckless words. WWE Backlash 2025 was supposed to be Seth Rollins' night. After weeks of manipulation, calculated moves, and masterful planning, Rollins finally had everything he wanted. He had Braun Breaker, the man who many considered the future of WWE, under his wing, shaping him into a new kind of powerhouse, a machine of destruction. With Paul Heyman as his right-hand man, Seth Rollins was more dangerous than ever before. The WWE Universe was on edge, waiting to see what Rollins would say next. Rollins, ever the talker, took to the microphone and began his usual rant. He was confident. He was cocky. He spoke of his intellect, his leadership, and how he had molded Braun Breaker into the next big thing in WWE. He spoke of his power, his influence, and how WWE was entering a new era of order, discipline, and dominance under his reign. And then, he did it. He crossed the line. Rollins mocked Roman Reigns, throwing shade at the tribal chief and leader of the new Shield. He claimed that Reigns' time was over, that his reign as Universal Champion was a relic of the past, and that Rollins was now the true future of WWE. But that wasn't all. Rollins' words grew darker, nastier, as he took aim at Dean Ambrose, the wild card of the Shield. He called Ambrose the weak link, the unstable one who could never quite grasp the vision of the Shield. He mocked Ambrose's unpredictability and inability to keep control, calling him a maniac who never belonged in the spotlight. Rollins declared that the lunatic was long gone, replaced by a visionary who would shape WWE's future. It was a slap in the face to the fans who once rallied behind the Shield. But more than that, it was a slap in the face to the very man who once shared the stage with him as a brother. Rollins may have thought his words were cutting, but what he didn't realize was that he had awoken a beast he couldn't control. The return of Dean Ambrose. Or Jon Moxley. As Seth Rollins basked in the glow of his own delusions of grandeur, something extraordinary was about to happen. The lights in the arena flickered. The crowd grew silent. And then, a sound pierced through the arena, a distorted siren, like a war drum echoing from the past. The fans' excitement reached a fever pitch as the unmistakable sound of Jon Moxley's entrance music blasted through the speakers. The crowd exploded, absolutely erupted. This wasn't just a return, this was a resurrection. Dean Ambrose, the man who had been through hell and back in WWE, the man who had once been the unpredictable, wild, and uncontrollable force of the Shield, was back. But this wasn't the same Ambrose that WWE fans once knew. This was Jon Moxley, a man who had transformed, who had evolved into something far more dangerous. He was no longer the lunatic that Rollins had dismissed. He was a force of nature, a man with a singular purpose, vengeance. Moxley made his way down to the ring with fire in his eyes. The fans couldn't believe it. The atmosphere was electric as Moxley slid into the ring, staring down the man who once called him a weak link. The tension was palpable. The WWE Universe had waited years for this moment, and it was finally happening. Seth Rollins, who had believed himself to be untouchable, now had to face the consequences of his words. But Moxley wasn't there just to talk. He was there to act. The confrontation, vengeance unleashed. As soon as Moxley entered the ring, Rollins' cocky smile faded. He was no longer the leader of the pack. He wasn't the man with all the answers. He was a cornered animal. Rollins stood in the center of the ring, trying to compose himself, but his confidence had been shattered. "You really thought you could erase me, didn't you, Seth?" Moxley said, his voice dripping with contempt. Rollins, attempting to regain his footing, shot back, "You're nothing but a ghost of the past, Moxley. This is my time now. You can't stop what's coming." But Moxley wasn't interested in words. He lunged at Rollins with the ferocity of a wild animal, and the fight was on. The arena shook as these two former brothers, now bitter rivals, tore into each other. Punches were thrown, bodies were slammed, and the crowd roared in approval. Moxley's unpredictability clashed with Rollins' calculated precision. Rollins tried to use his technical prowess, but Moxley's raw aggression and willingness to do whatever it took to win overwhelmed him. Moxley hit Rollins with a series of brutal strikes, including his signature dirty deeds that rocked the entire arena. Rollins staggered, barely able to keep his feet under him, as Moxley taunted him with a cold smile. "You think you can take down Roman? You think you can take down the tribal chief, the leader of the new Shield? You have no idea what you're messing with, Seth." But Moxley wasn't done yet. He pulled Rollins up, slammed him into the turnbuckle, and began to unleash a flurry of punches. The crowd was chanting, "Moxley! Moxley," as Rollins struggled to stay in the fight. In one final act of desperation, Rollins attempted to hit Moxley with a curb stomp, but Moxley dodged, grabbed Rollins by the throat, and slammed him to the mat with a violent paradigm shift. The arena erupted in chaos. Moxley stood over Rollins, breathing heavily, his eyes burning with intensity. This wasn't just a fight, it was a battle for everything that both men stood for. Rollins, the man who had betrayed his brothers, now found himself completely powerless against the rage of a man he had underestimated for far too long. The aftermath, fallout and unanswered questions. As Moxley stood tall in the ring, victorious over Rollins, the WWE Universe could barely comprehend what they had just witnessed. The man who had once been the unpredictable force of the Shield had returned to show Rollins exactly what happens when you forget who you came up with. But this wasn't just a story of Moxley's revenge. This was the beginning of something much bigger. With Moxley's return, a new dynamic was introduced to WWE. Rollins' reign as the visionary was shattered, and the power balance in WWE was about to shift once again. And what about Roman Reigns? The leader of the new Shield had been the target of Rollins' mockery, but the tribal chief had been silent in the face of this drama. Could this lead to a reunion between Moxley and Reigns? Will we see the new Shield rise again, stronger than ever? One thing's for sure, WWE Backlash 2025 was just the beginning. This rivalry is far from over. Seth Rollins may have thought he was the future, but Jon Moxley has shown that the past is far from gone. As we head into the next chapter of this saga, one thing is clear, the Shield is never truly broken. What do you think, wrestling fans? Will Moxley and Reigns reunite to take down Rollins and Breaker? Is Rollins' empire in peril? And what's next for Jon Moxley after his shocking return? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more breaking WWE news. You won't want to miss what happens next. Stay tuned for more updates, and as always, stay tuned to Wrestling News CC. If you thought tonight's story was wild, trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. So don't stop now. Click on the video right here on your screen to continue the chaos, the drama, and the inside scoop only we deliver. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and join the Wrestling News CC family, where the real stories of WWE come to life. See you in the next one.